and welcome to Telewizja Republika. Early today, Russian forces intensified their aggressive tactics against Ukraine, launching a significant next aerial assault from multiple locations, including the Black Sea and Russian territory. Strategic bombers deployed a wide array of weaponry, targeting critical energy infrastructure across Ukrainian regions such as Kyiv, Zaporizhzhia, Lviv, Poltava. Once again, we see it over and over again. This attack, one of the largest in the recent weeks, saw the use of the hypersonic Kinzhal and Iskander ballistic missiles. Nothing new, sorry to say that. The assault aimed at crippling Ukraine's energy capabilities with specific strikes on 3 major thermal power plants, causing extensive damage and raising concerns of prolonged power outages. Ukraine's energy operator, has been forced to announce energy blackouts and is working on contingency plans to manage the anticipated energy shortfall. In response to these attacks, Ukrainians' air defense forces were quick to mobilize. The Air Force, as Commander Mykola Oleszczuk revealed, successfully intercepted and destroyed 39 missiles and 20 drones, a testament to the effectiveness of their defense strategy, which included fighter jets, mobile fire groups, and electronic warfare units. Despite these efforts, the situation remains tense as the impact on the energy sector is significant. The attacks not only disrupt daily life, but also pose a strategic challenge to Ukraine's military operations and its civilian population's resilience. In a concerning development, Ukrainian intelligence thwarted an assassination attempt on President Volodymyr Zelensky. Next one, because we already heard about many of those attempts. The head of Ukraine's security services, Vasyl Maliuk, disclosed that the assassination was meant to be a gift for Putin before his inauguration. Well, he didn't receive this present now. Maliuk himself and General Kirill Budanov, chief of military intelligence, were also targets for assassination attempts. According to SBU, the Federal Security Service of Russia, FSB, has aimed to identify military personnel close to President's security detail who could seize him and then execute him, with 2 colonels from Ukraine's administration of state guard involved in the plot. This attempt highlights the barbaric and relentless nature of Russian operations aimed at destabilizing Ukraine and killing people, as always. That's our website, rakracon.com. You can join us here. You can leave us your email so we can get back to you with reports from the front lines of the ongoing war against the West, not only in Ukraine, as we try to follow all these events and travel not only to Ukraine, but also to Washington, D.C., to see what were the reasons for which, finally, after months of struggle, the West managed to unblock the Ukrainian aid package. Because that's what we are going to talk about on my show. My name is Michał Rachony. This is Rakracon. And we roll in.
Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go!
And straight from Washington, D.C., the man who travels through the Atlantic Ocean in the very important cause, doing very important things regarding the issue that we are discussing on our program. Stephen Moore, straight from Washington, D.C., straight from Capitol Hill. Stephen, great to have you again on our program.
Michael Rashawn, always great to be here.
And I have to start, and I'm doing it with a great pleasure. I do want to congratulate you. Our viewers know very well that you've been working really hard also over there in Washington, D.C. to make the thing, to get the thing done, to help organize the military aid package to Ukraine. And you've been doing a lot among the American Republicans to convince them that this is actually a very important thing and that they should agree on what they actually agreed. So we didn't have a chance to talk since the news were announced that actually the package went through. Your thoughts after those months of hard work?
Well, I went to bed at 10 o'clock last night, and it was super weird. I haven't done that in months. So usually I'm working until way past midnight. But, here's what we found is we polled Republican primary voters. These are the people that get the Republicans elected. And what we found is that Ukraine aid is more popular among the Republican base than some of the pro-Russian, anti-Ukraine people would have you think. You know, there was expected to be this big backlash, and Marjorie Taylor Greene tried to rally support to get Speaker Johnson ousted, and it didn't happen. You know, like, she got 3 people, right? There's 435 people in the House of Representatives. She got 3 to see it her way. So, and what our polling shows is that when you give Republicans truthful and accurate information about the situation in Ukraine, they support the Ukraine aid bill. 62% of Republicans on our poll they supported the Ukraine aid bill after we gave them good information. They started at 42% because folks like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Marjorie Taylor Greene are sucking up all the oxygen to talk about Ukraine. But again, when you give Republicans good information, they support the bill.
You are one of the first people who publicly tried to focus attention of American Republicans on the issue that is actually tackling one of the main pillars of Russian propaganda against Ukraine. You were the one who focused the attention on the fact that actually those are evangelical Christians who are attacked in Ukraine. Think that we here in Europe probably wouldn't even consider a politically important factor. And you were arguing on our programs, talking to me and our viewers, that this is a fundamental thing. And actually, you just published a very important article in The Hill reminding of this issue. Why? Could you try to explain it one more time? Why
Absolutely.
This thing is so important?
Well, 60% of Republican voters identify as evangelical Christians. And so this is a very important voting bloc for Republicans. These are the people that get Republicans elected. And and the Russians recognize this. So they've been targeting U.S. evangelical Christians for years with a bunch of different messaging. Most recently, it's the stuff you heard from, again, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Marjorie Taylor Greene, that Zelensky and the Ukrainian government is arresting nuns and priests, executing priests, and all this nonsense. Thinks this is not true. And you know, I first heard this in like December 2022 from Tucker Carlson. About that same time, I met a guy named Victor Chernivsky, and Victor is an evangelical pastor from Luhansk, and he was held and tortured for 25 days by the Russians, including one day when a Russian Orthodox priest was standing over him, trying to cast demons out of him while he was being shocked with a self-defense device, a taser. And yeah. So and it just occurred to me that Republicans are going away from Ukraine. Part of it is because of Tucker Carlson's nonsense. And, you know, if Republicans knew the horrors that are being endured in the occupied parts of Ukraine by people that worship God in a very, you know, that's a very personal choice. That's a very spiritual and emotional connection. And so if they knew this, then they would be more likely to support Ukraine. And the data supported that. So that 70% of Republican primary voters are more likely to support Ukraine when you tell them that Russia is torturing and murdering Protestants and evangelicals in Ukraine for their faith.
It took you, and I'm speaking of you because you were actually doing a lot and publishing a lot of information, and you are one of few people with that kind of connections in Washington, D.C., who are constantly present in Ukraine. You've been traveling and passing Atlantic Ocean several times. I counted 4 visits of yours and 4 times traveling back and forth from Ukraine
with the
to
Polish border. Very familiar with the Warsaw Airport.
Yeah, I know that, and I'm really glad. Why was it so difficult? Because it wasn't an easy task to get this message through.
Yeah, so I think it just takes someone with a political attitude towards it. I've been working in Republican politics my entire life. I've been running campaigns my entire life. I'm pretty good at changing public opinion. I've been doing it all my life. And so there's another guy that works with me, a guy named Carl Algren, who is the the godfather of Oklahoma politics, and Oklahoma is the Bible Belt. So between the two of us, we knew how to use the messaging. We knew how to be effective. We talked to about 100 congressional offices. There's probably close to 75 articles in the media between October of last year and right now that are talking about Russia torturing and murdering Christians for the faith. And before October last year, you're the only one that wanted to talk about it with me. So,
The reason,
my push on always on the forefront.
that's pretty obvious. You are the one who was on the ground covering the most important issues, most important aspects of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, with drones war being one of them at the early stage of the war. Stephen, why, in your opinion, the Russian disinfo campaign targeted directly on Republican voters was so effective? Because it was effective, and if someone told me that, I don't know, a year ahead of this war, I wouldn't believe that this disinfo campaign on U.S. ground could be that effective, and it was deadly effective in a way, because those months. Those months were really affected the Ukrainian-Russian front lines of this war.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, so there's a kinetic war going on in Ukraine. There's a kinetic war going on in the Middle East, and they're connected. And Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea are all working together. And we can't get until recently we couldn't get the U.S. Congress to agree on what time it is. So what the Russians were very clever in doing is in October of last year, they got the Moscow caucus of the Republicans to join with every Democrat in Congress to vote out Kevin McCarthy, the pro-Ukraine speaker. And there's a bunch of domestic politics reasons for it, but this was what Putin wanted to have happen, and it took us 6 months to recover from that. And we're in a big information war right now. You, me, everyone in Washington D.C. Most of us don't even realize it. You and I do, but most people don't realize the massive information war. And the Russians spend somewhere between 1.5 and 2.4 billion dollars annually on propaganda around the world. So Speaker Mike Johnson is a very devout man. He was a Baptist activist prior to coming in Congress. So but when we actually got several Ukrainian pastors over to Washington D.C., some of them met with Speaker Johnson. Speaker Johnson is deeply moved. And so there's a lot of CIA briefings, a lot of information that got to him intellectually. But for a man who's a deeply devout Baptist activist before getting to Congress, it was that spiritual and emotional connection to people that worship God like he does in Ukraine, I think that was really moving.
Coming back to the article that you just wrote, co-authored for The Hill, you are pointing to two main pillars of the Russian disinfo campaign against Ukraine, but that is being used on U.S. soil to affect the American support for Ukraine. Could you walk us through those two fundamental pillars?
Yeah, so it's this nonsense about Ukraine being Nazis, and we dive into that, how some of the leaders of the nationalist movement in Ukraine, that one of them that we highlighted was he was a hero to the nations, named that by the Israelis, and so there's a lot of nonsense there. And then the other thing we focused on is, again, this Tucker Carlson message of Ukraine persecuting Christians. We polled 7 statements that were verifiably originated in Russia. We found these articles. They were, and so things like Zelensky has bought 2 yachts with American aid money. Mrs. Zelensky bought $1.5 million in Cartier jewelry. Or the whole Nazi theme, right? And we found that 1/3 of Republican voters had been exposed to Russian propaganda and believed at least one of those 7 statements. So that's 1/3 of the people that get Republicans elected that are being influenced by Russian propaganda. And this is something that we're trying to get out.
This Ukrainian aid package that finally was put through the Congress and was effective or is effective right now will have its effect on the front lines pretty soon. What are your thoughts and what do you expect to be the influence of the things that happened in Washington, D.C. on Ukrainian-Russian war frontline activity?
Well, first, I think it's going to be a real morale booster to Ukrainians who, are like the Ukrainians at the front who've been throwing rocks at the Russians for 6 months because they don't have any ammo. I think that's going to be a real morale booster to Ukraine. 2, the shortcomings of the Republicans are well documented and get a lot of attention, as they should. But here's where we've gotten now. All this is passed and it's gotten to the executive branch. So the Biden administration now has to act quickly to get these weapons to Ukraine. And, they took 10 months to get M1 A1 Abrams to Ukraine. And the fighter jets were promised last May, and a year later, I think they're just getting there. So, the Biden administration has not been very effective logistically in this war, and it's time for them to step it up. The other thing that I think is important is that we haven't talked about yet is the Repo Act. This is an act which authorizes the president to freeze Russian assets and confiscate them for use in aiding Ukraine. And there's $300 billion in Russian assets around the world, much of it in Europe, Belgium, Germany, France. And so now, some of the European countries want to move forward on this. But it's time for the Biden administration to act on this. And so I think that's where the pressure needs to go. It needs to go on the Biden administration to fulfill the demands of Congress.
It looks like we know now the new informational target of Stephen Moore and his activity. Stephen, you got us on board. We are going to support you big time, that's for sure. $300 billion in Russian assets all around the world. Well, politicians all over the world, go for it. Those are the money that should be spent on kicking out Ruskies back to their country, behind the borders of the land that they are trying to steal. Stephen, thanks again for your...
Always great to be with you, man.
For your support. Stay safe. Take a rest if that's possible before the next battle in this informational warfare that you are.
Mexico. Our next conversation will be me on the beach in Mexico.
Cancun, 1, 2, 3, Cancun. Basketball playoffs are on, so hope that you are not going to be eliminated from this political playoff. And that's the thing that's not going to happen for sure. Steve, thanks a lot. And again, congratulations for your great success. We are waiting for more of your successes. See you soon.
All right, we'll see you. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your presence. You can join us on rackracon.com. That's our website. You can leave us your email, and we'll get back to you with our reports from the front lines of the ongoing war against the West that we try to report on this program. See you soon. Ciao, ciao. Bye. Probably we're not going to see each other tomorrow.